This is Deborah Zaritsky for Bio 515, Grand Canyon University. Today is April the 30th, 2020, for Dr. Ott. Talking today about the endocrine system and how this is going to connect with our neurological transmitters and act as chemical messengers for our functions of survival within the human body. I'm going to start off talking about a small gland within the tissue here, the brain tissue, called the hypothalamus. Even though it is surrounded by our cerebral cortex and cerebrum, it is part of the hormonal system known as the endocrine system. So there are these proteins that are synthesized here in the hypothalamus that are quite important. One is called the vasopressin, another is oxytocin. So we know that fluids, in order to have homeostasis, fluids have to be within balance. And so we have antidiuretic hormone so that we don't keep too much water or waste too much water. So we're working with our kidneys and our nephrons, and of course our excretory system. Oxytocin is another hormone that doesn't work directly with that homeostasis. However, for women it's quite important in childbirth. Gives us that lactation, the production of colostrum in the first weeks of childbirth. So this is typically known as a love hormone. There's another gland as we work our way down close to our trachea, known as the thyroid gland. They call it a butterfly shape, and it produces two hormones. One is called the thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH, and another is called the thyrotropin releasing hormone. They sound very similar, and according to the University of Michigan, the thyroid hormones affect every cell in all the organs of the body, and they regulate the rate at which calories are burned, affecting weight loss or gain, can slow down or speed up the heartbeat, can raise or lower temperature, can influence the rate at which food moves through the digestive tract, and control the way muscles contract. They also can control the rate at which dying cells are replaced, so mitotic activity. So we're going to have the TRH kind of in a tropic fashion, tropic meaning promote growth. It's going to turn on TSH secretion by the anterior pituitary gland. So we move from the hypothalamus. Now remember, we're kind of tucked inside of that that brain there, that cerebrum. So then we have the pituitary, the anterior means front portion. So this is where we're going to have the adrenocorticotropic hormone, known as ACTH, produced in response to UV light from the sun. And it stimulates our cortisol secretion and promotes growth of the adrenal cortex, which is down by our kidneys. So we know that a single hormone has more than one type of effector or receptor, and we know that it can be found in we could have hormones that are similar in what they do in different anatomical parts. So in this case, they kind of do the same thing here. So keratinocytes in the skin produce a melanocyte-stimulating hormone, which promote dispersal from nearby melanocytes of the pigment melanin and cause tanning. And appetite-suppressing neurons in the hypothalamus secrete to control food intake. So also, we also have our they're more of our reproductive hormones, the follicle-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, and the lactotrophs, or prolactins. So they do have that in common, that they do deal with mainly reproductive responsibilities. So the FSH is helping to regulate the gamete production in both sexes. Same with the luteinizing. Although they found with our prolactin that there really is not a certain reproductive function in males, but prolactin is found in other tissues within the human body, such as the retina, also in the heart. So within the pituitary, we're going to have something called a growth hormone and an insulin-like growth factor. So that growth hormone is going to be heightened during puberty. And this does increase fatty acid levels in the blood. And it stimulates amino acid uptake and protein degradation and metabolic effects. The insulin-like growth factors are going to act on target cells and cause the growth of soft tissues and bone. So the growth hormone is not necessarily needed during pregnancy, but does take effect once the child is born. So now we have the thyroxine and triiodothyronine. So what happens is that the metabolic rate of either the thyroxine or the triiodothyronine will differ in its concentration of iron in the blood. So we have the T3 and the T4. So tri meaning 3, iodo, it's very hard to pronounce, but that's indicative of the iodine. And so T3 and T4. So what happens is when the hypothalamus releases the TRH, it triggers the TSH to be released by the pituitary. And then the parathyroid within our thyroid follicle cells are going to be releasing the TSH and the T3 and T4. And this is going to increase our metabolic rate within our mitochondria and rise in body temperature. And our negative feedback through our hypophyseal and hypothalamic portal can balance the release of these hormones. So according to Sherwood, the colloid or substance, it serves as an extracellular storage site for thyroid hormone within the follicle cells. And large glycoprotein molecule known as the thyroglobin within each of the thyroid hormones is at various stages of synthesis. So this has to do with body development, growth stimulation, cellular metabolism, regulations of heart rate, body weight, cholesterol levels, and body temperatures, and regulation of neural development. So then you have the parathyroid, which looks like these little tiny dots. They're on our little butterfly there. And the parathyroid is going to be receiving feedback from blood calcium levels to determine, again through feedback and those neuroendocrine pathways, they can determine if they need more or not. And so we have helps with the vitamin D metabolism. Then we have the calcitonin hormones. They play a role in our calcium metabolism, which is directly linked to our muscle control. So then we have cortisol. Cortisol is produced in the adrenal gland in the zona fasciculata and has second of 3 layers comprising the adrenal cortex. The adrenal cortex is on top of the kidneys. It kind of looks like that right there. So where we have the release of one, we have the release of the other. And then we have our insulin and glucagon, and they kind of work with one another to balance our sugars within our blood. Our nutrition intake, so we can have protein degradation and lipolysis. So those are the primary hormones for that. And that is the endocrine system. Thank you.